Hello, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are and whatever time is at your place. Welcome back to another episode of our photography review show. If you've never been here before or if you've never seen me before, my name is Jakub and I'm a professional photographer based in West Sussex, England. Now, I've been running this show for over 2 years now, and in that time, I have managed to review thousands of your images. So, yes, this is what we do here. We look at your photos and try to help you to improve your photography and photo editing skills few steps further. Anyway, we're going to start from the beginning with few important messages. Number one, what we do, we basically take your images and we look at three aspects of them. We look at the technical part. This is where we look at things like camera settings, we look at exposure, noise, the sharpness of the images, and all of that important stuff. After that, we look at the artistic part of the image. This is where we look at the photo. This is where we look at things like composition, the main subject, storytelling, and the overall feel of the image. And finally, what we do at the end, we then try to give you some tips and tricks on how to improve or adjust the editing of the image. I do that if I think that it's necessary or that it's beneficial for you. Now, when I show you the photo editing for this photography review show, I use Luminar Neo, following the fact that we're focusing a lot for Luminar Neo here at Clever Photographer, and also the YouTube channel where you're most likely watching is pretty much focusing on Luminar Neo 2, so it only makes sense. However, if you don't own Luminar Neo, you can very easily do the edits in your own photo editing applications. All I'm gonna do is can be done in applications like Lightroom, On One, and so on. So this is what we do with your images. Now, very quickly, if you want to join us for the photography review show with your own images, all you need to do is to jump into the description of this video and follow the link there, or you can head straight to our website, cleverphotographer.com/forward membership. There you can sign up to our membership program, which is called Clever Photographer Plus. And for a little fee, you will get three important things. Number one, you will get access to this photography review show where you can send your own photos. Number two, you get access to our Clever Photographer Academy. And probably most importantly, you will get our monthly Clever Photographer Plus bundles. Now, each of the month, the bundle is focusing on different photography styles. And for example, last month we were looking at wildlife photography, and now in few days, we're going to be releasing our traditional festive photography bundle. Now, what's inside of the bundle? Basically, what you get is presets for Luminar Neo, Lightroom, and Photoshop. You also get Photoshop brushes. You get overlays, textures, presets, LUTs, backgrounds, custom brushes, and so much more. It's usually between 200 and 300 assets, and it's always a great bundle of tools that you can use on your own images and sometimes specifically on that time of the year. Now, this is all out of the way, so you know what we're going to do, you know how to join us, and now we can pretty much start. Now, looking into the comments, greeting to Tony and hello to Zdeněk. I hope you guys doing great. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. Thank you for everyone who's watching live on our YouTube channel. And also, thank you if you're watching on replay. It's great to have you here. We're going to have a half an hour, 45 minutes of photography fun, and I hope you're going to enjoy it. Now, if you have any questions for the specific picture or anything about photography, make sure that you write them in the comments, and I will answer them as we go through the pictures. So this is all out of the way. We have some quiet exciting photos to go through. So let's start right away from the top, and let's start with Tony. So Tony, today you first. How about that? That must be something to do with the photography styles. So we're going to start with Tony and his macro kind of nature captures. Now, starting from this one right here, I love that. That's beautiful colors, great combination. Now, I'm a huge fan of this kind of pastel dark green color. I generally really like it. And in the combination with this red, I think that is really pretty. Well done, Tony. I love this image. Now, moving on the second one, similar color combination, different shade of grain, but still very pretty too. And moving on the next image, this is like a lovely yellow blooming on the plant, also very pretty. The yellow with the dark green also works very well. So well done there. Finally, now I'm not 100% sure how you call this kind of plant in English, but it's basically what grows in a forest, and it can also work very well on images. So starting from the start here, let's start with this image. Now, Tony, as I mentioned, I love the color combination. However, looking at it, it looks a little bit soft to me. I don't see the sharpness as much. So let's look at it. Let's start first with the camera details. So this was captured with Canon 7D, and the lens is 18 to 135 millimeters. Now, looking at the camera settings, ISO 200, 135 millimeters, f7.1, and 1/25th of a second on the shutter speed. So ISO perfectly fine for this type of photography. 200 is ideal. Oh, sorry, Zdeněk, well done. There we are. Now we can see the images. So coming back to the camera settings, ISO 200, spot on, 135 millimeters, so really zoomed in on the image right here. f7.1, for that length of lens, it still gives you very nice soft background, so that works very well here. And 1/25th of a second is a little bit slower, and I wonder if that's the reason why we don't have that kind of crisp sharpness. Now, it's not soft, but you can see when I zoom in, I hope you can see it on your screen too, that it just has a little touch of maybe like a motion blur or not sharpness. Just not sure. It's not just the usual real sharp image. Now, looking around, the light is really nice. I really enjoy that. So that works very well here. And the noise, yes, there is a little bit, but some of it probably also comes from the JPEG transition. So in overall, it's a lovely image, technically well captured, everything except the sharpness. I think it's touch soft. When it comes to the artistic part of the image, we have a really nice composition with obviously very strong contrast between the two colors. Also, I really like the use of the depth here. So you have your main subject, which is standing out because of the color, but also because of the depth. So obviously the foreground being in focus and the background being soft create really nice image as well. In overall, the framing is also very lovely, creating lovely scene. So all in all, it's a great picture. Tony, well done, well captured. Only thing I would keep an eye is the sharpness. And you can see it immediately on the next image, how that one is actually much sharper. However, I can immediately see a little bit more noise on it. So let's quickly jump into the camera settings again. Same camera, same lens, if I am right. Yep. But from the camera settings, we are on ISO 400, 112 millimeters on the lens, and f6.3 and 1/80th of a second. So 1/80th of a second gives us much sharper result. f6.3, again with the 112 millimeters, create quite nice depth. And looking at the flower, it looks like most of it is in focus as well. So that's good. However, the 400 ISO really create lots of noise. You can see it a lot. And looking at it, it's not just a noise, the grain noise, it's also a color noise. You can see it a lot in this part. If I maybe zoom in a little closer and move to the brighter areas, that's definitely something that I would look at, Tony. So that's from the camera settings. I think most of it is coming from ISO and maybe also lower light situation. And let's see if we can maybe fix that in the editing in a few moments. Now, talking about the composition, again, lovely done. I think this type of images really work very well in this square crop. I think it really creates a really nice scene. It's well balanced. It let the flower to stand out, and I think it can really work super well. So on that note, I think that's all good, Tony. It's just the noise. So let's see if we can fix it quickly. Let's jump into the edit module. This is where all the editing is done in Luminar Neo. And here in Luminar Neo, there are multiple different ways you can take care of noise. You can do the traditional way where you basically use the noise reduction sliders like luminosity and color. So that often helps. Now let's see if we can maybe zoom in a little closer somewhere around here. And let me make it just a little bit brighter so you can see it. And then we can quickly look before and after. Now, I hope you can see it maybe on the brighter area. Before I push the luminosity and color slider, you can see the amount of noise here. And once I apply, you can see how a lot of it disappear. So the difference is huge. Now, often when you overdo it, when you push the luminosity and color sliders, you also start to lose details on the main element, on the important part, like the flower here. So what you can do is you can use sliders like the masking if you use sharpness, or you can use masking in general for the tool itself. So you could, for example, here in Luminar Neo, you could select masking, brush, and click on erase because you just want to erase the noise reduction from certain part of the image. And then you can go and basically brush over these areas and bring the details back. So that's one way to do it. You can basically brush over these and have the details back. That's one way to do it. You could play around with different masking and so on. However, just to give you an idea, without the mask, and again, let's see if we can do redo. And this is after the noise reduction. So noise reduction is the way to go. And actually, to be honest, looking at it, it did pretty good job already with just a simple noise reduction in the develop tool. So we don't have to go any further. This is what I would do with this image in post-processing. And I think you would end up with brilliant photo. Now, this, looking at the comments, is a fern leaf. F-E-R-N. Fern leaf. Well, you learn something every day, Tony. Thank you very much for letting me know. Well, it's very pretty. It's a simple, obviously, composition with contrast mostly created with the depth of the field. We have the foreground in sharpness. The light is nice and diffuse, so all of it worked there. But I wanted to more look at this image here, just to finish off going through the images. Now, again, looking at the camera and camera settings, it's all good there. 7D, 18 to 135 millimeters. From the camera settings, ISO 200, 135 millimeters, and f6.3 and 1/200 of a second. So with the 1/200 of a second, when we look at it, we get much better result when it comes to sharpness. Again, with the ISO 200, very limited noise, so that all works very well too. And 1/200 of a second gives you this very nice overall exposure with a little bit darker background and brighter foreground, which I think works very well. Now, what we could do when it comes to editing is push the details on the main subject even further. I think that would really help to really make the photo stand out, because in overall I really enjoyed the composition. I think it works very well. Again, multiple different things that are well done here. I really like the contrast between the brighter and warmer main subject and darker and more kind of green cooler background. So that's the brightness, the colors, the combination of yellow and green always works very well. The depth works very well. The overall vignette maybe created naturally works very well. So all in all, Tony, I really like it. All I would like to do is to get the subject being a little bit more defined with a little bit extra sharpness. And here in Luminar Neo, what we can do, we can jump into edit, and there is a tool called details. So yes, you have your sharpening slider, which is more the traditional way of sharpening things. It basically create contrast between the individual pixels. However, with the details sliders, you can basically individually adjust the amount of details in small details, medium, and large details. So let's have a look at it if it's going to help us a little bit. So with the small details, looking at the flowers, I will have to go quite high. Let me see if I can zoom in closer for you. With the medium details, let's have a look. Oh, they do a little bit as well for us. And then with the large details, maybe just a touch. Now, with the details, again, we can apply a little bit of masking. just to make sure that we adding the details only to the areas that have a texture or edge or sharpness there. We don't want to be adding details to area which is completely flat because we will just introduce noise. So if we use masking, we are telling the application sharpen only the areas which having edge. Basically, the application is looking for pixels that have a bigger or higher contrast between them. Now, to see it better, let me again bring this slider in and let's have a look. So obviously, this is the area we already adjusted, and this is the area before. And if I adjust the slider, you can really see it. Now, if you focus on this area, let me zoom in even closer. Maybe somewhere around here. And now with the slider, this is after and this is before. I hope you can see it on your screens. If not, definitely give it a go. It's worth to try, and it can really get the main subject and get it stand out. Maybe it's more visible like this. Now again, before and after. So Tony, a little bit of extra sharpness is another way of getting the subject stand out. I hope it's going to be helpful. I hope that maybe a little bit of the noise reduction will be helpful for this one. And anyway, still, thank you very much for sending your images over. It's always great to see them. And I can't wait to see more next week. Which brings us to next photographer. Now, the next photographer will be Elizabeth. Elizabeth, let's go ahead and look at your images. Starting with this stunning capture of an eagle. I mean, how about that? That is beautiful. I really, really like that. Now, looking at the name of the photo, it looks like it was captured in Park Zoo, Bio Park Zoo, which doesn't really matter. It's for many landscape or for many wildlife photographers, the zoo or safaris or this type of nature reserves are the first place where they start with their wildlife photography. And I used to know a wildlife photographer who would love to go to zoos and capture images of wild animals there. And then basically in post-processing, he removed all the different cages and barriers and everything. And he told me that he used to feel like he was freeing the animals. And I always remember this story because I thought that's a great way to look at it. Because lots of wildlife photographers will just kind of say, oh, I don't go to zoos. It's not real wildlife photography. And this guy who was making thousands of dollars with wildlife photography often went to zoos and similar parks, and it was just his way of freeing the animals. So I thought that was great. Anyway, so starting with this one, again, majestic animal, beautiful picture. And so what we're going to do, we're going to start first with the camera settings. So this is Canon RP with the Tamron 28 to 300 millimeters. And looking at the camera settings, ISO 6400, so really high there on that one, 210 millimeters on the lens, and then f6.3 and 1/500 of a second. So let's go through it quickly. ISO 6400, yes, it's a definitely higher ISO, especially with the higher f-stop, probably the need when you want the 1/500 of a second. Obviously, as always, the lower the better, but I think the result looks quite decent for that high ISO, so well done there. f6.3 will be a limitation with the lens, so you're getting what you're getting, and I think it looks cool. 1/500 of a second. Now, if the bird was standstill sitting, 1/500 of a second is more than enough. Obviously, if he would be flying, we would be looking for faster shutter speed, but I think for this, it's probably quite good. Now, looking at it, I think in overall, the light is quite nice. I like the overall feel. I like the colors. I think the noise isn't that visible. So all in all is well captured. However, Elizabeth, when I look at it a little bit further, when I start to kind of look more at different parts of the image, I, for example, notice this part of the beak being blurred at the same time as the background. So you can probably see that it kind of continues in this shape and it just disappears here. And then once you catch this, then your eyes start to look for these moments. And then you kind of look at the bottom here again, where maybe parts are a little bit more softer, and so on. So that's just one thing to keep an eye on. These little details are really important to adjust before you share the image, because as I say, when you look at the image first, you absolutely love it. Then, because you really like it, you keep looking at it, and then you discover little details like this. And as your eyes catch it, then they start to look for it on the image, which I think is a little bit of a shame, because it's really well done. I really, really like it, and I think it looks great. In overall, when it comes to the composition, I think it's nicely done. My only wish would be that you would have more of the image at the bottom, that you would see a little bit more of this branch, and that you would have the rest of the animal in the frame. That would be my wish. I think it would look and work a little bit better. So when it comes to wildlife photography or animal photography, I think that if you crop in at the animal, it needs to be framed in such a way that the viewer know that that was your intention, that you basically wanted to zoom in and frame on the animal and really show us that specific part of the animal. Where in opposite, many times it ends up looking like basically we forgot to capture that part of the image, or we were not able to, or we just didn't frame it right. And this is one of them. You just need a little bit of extra space at the bottom. But still, I think it's well done. I like the depth. I love the colors, the level of details, the overall look of it. I think all of that works very well, as Elizabeth. So well done on that. And thank you for sharing that picture with us. My only bit would be take extra time to do the softening of the background to make sure that these parts are all adjusted well. Which brings us to your second image, a little bit of landscape photography. Elizabeth, let's jump to it. Let's see what we looking at here. Let's see if I can read it from it. Canyon, dog canyon. Now it looks very, very nice. Let's go through the camera settings. Again, Canon RP with the Tamron 28 to 300 millimeters. There, from the camera settings, ISO 100, f13, and 1/100 of a second. So ISO 100 for landscape photography, spot on there. 28 millimeters, nice and wide view. F13, yes, I mean, you have a foreground very close to you and then quite big depth on the image, so I understand that. So f13 is quite good. And 1/100 of a second, giving you the details and exposure you need for the entire image. So Elizabeth, from the camera setting point of view, everything spot on there. Looking at the image, again, sharpness. So there is the sharpness on the foreground. And once I zoom in a little bit, let's have a look. That is pretty much details all the way through the end. Obviously, with the background being a little bit softer or more in a haze, that has a lot to do with the overall image. It will have to do with the temperature towards the end and so on. So in overall, the sharpness is good. The exposure is good. However, the light isn't really that crazy interesting. You know, you get lots of yellows and greens and quite harsh light with heavy shadows and a blue haze on the background. But all in all, it's quite good. And I think technically quite well done. No noise. So good for that. Now, talking about composition, now there are things that I think works well, and I think things that don't work that great. One of it is the foreground. Obviously, it's very good to incorporate foreground, middle ground, and background to give us a little bit of depth. However, there are two things. I think the foreground is a little bit too big and a little bit too cut away. And number two, this is a kind of rule which not many people tell you, is that high frequency foregrounds, and this is like really a lot of grass or lots of these kind of plants or anything like that. It's just a lot of high frequency. It's a lot of it can be really distracting from the rest of the image. I'm not sure why it is, but it really happens that the human eyes get then attached to that and get really distracted with it. So keep an eye on the high frequency. It works when it's like one plant and it's a little bit further away from the camera. When there is a lot of it in the foreground of the camera, then it gets a little bit distracting. I quite like the flow of the canyon. I think that works quite well. I like the framing for the thirds, 1/3 of the sky, 2/3 of the ground. I think that works very well too. So there are things that are right, and there are things that I think need a little bit of fixing. So I think the foreground is um, not really adding that much to the scene, but then the flow and the framing is quite good. When it comes to the post processing, there's not great much of things I would do to it. I would maybe try to remove the blue haze, but with the blue sky, it kind of matches the image. The level of details is quite good. It maybe is a little bit too warm for my liking. So what I would do, I would just adjust the white balance slightly more towards the blue, and that's about it, and then leave it from there. So Elizabeth, thank you very much for sharing both of the images with us. Thank you for the landscape and also for the eagle, which is absolutely epic. So moving on, we have two more photographers. We have Zdeněk with his watering hole and one more panorama landscape. Zdeněk, how many pictures is this one? Is it just the one or is it multiple? I would love to know. Before we do that, Tony, you are very welcome. I hope it was helpful. I hope it was helpful to look at your images. And also, hello to Tom. Hello to Ohio. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. And thank you for being here with us. Now, coming back to the images, let's start with the watering hole here and with the animals. What we have, some monkeys and antelopes, or I'm sure there will be a different names for them, and you may share it with us in the comments. But we're gonna look at the photography part first. So no camera details, but we know the lens, and that was 55 to 250 millimeters. Canon lens with the camera settings, ISO 400, 250 millimeters on a zoom, f6.3 and 1,250th of a second. So ISO 400, wildlife photography, lots of movement there. We need a higher shutter speed, so 400 is perfectly fine. 250 millimeters makes me think that you were probably quite far away from there, which is understandable. You don't want to distract the animals. F6.3 for this length of the lens is perfect, and I'm assuming maybe with this lens it would be difficult to go lower anyway. And 1,250th of a second is probably safe bet with that many animals moving around. You can see the monkeys, some of them are drinking, the other ones are walking away, and yeah, it's just a lot of movement, so the shutter speed on that is probably quite good. Now let's zoom in and let's have a look. I think the sharpness is very, very decent on most of the animals here in the foreground, also on the monkey leaving, on these guys as well, and the reflection here as well. So in overall, it looks really good. Warm day with kind of stronger shadows, but I think well captured there. No noise, very decent sharpness. So all in all, technically, Zdeněk, well done. Great picture. Really enjoyed that. Moving to the artistic part, I really enjoyed this, I have to say. The number of animals reflecting in the water, doing different things. It's a great scene. What you could do here, you could leave it like this as this kind of landscape cinematic capture. You could also go ahead and crop different parts of it and just use them. You could just have the monkeys or just the animals here. There's a lot of different things happening, which I think the viewer would really enjoy. I think the viewer of the image would start by the overall look, which is already really interesting. Obviously, a scene almost like from a safari movie, lovely colors and very kind of attractive things happening there. And then as they would start to look at the image, they would then look at the different parts. Again, as I say, the monkeys drinking and then the animals drinking and this one leaving away and you're wondering where is he going. And it is a great image because it would keep the viewer busy for quite some time. So well done, Zdeněk. Really like that. Really enjoyed that image, and I think it's greatly done. When it comes to post-processing, I wouldn't really do anything differently, to be honest. I think it's just well done. If anything, I think it's tilting slightly bit on one side, so maybe I would just rotate it just tiny bit. Let's have a look, maybe just somewhere around here. Let's see if that helps. Yeah, maybe just a touch, and that's about it. Not much else I could do. You could darken the top a little bit, again, to bring more attention to the center. That probably would be another thing. So just minus on exposure and good old linear gradient from the top. So that way you kind of close that part and focus more on this. Uh, that's maybe touch too much. Let's see if we bring it up a little bit. Somewhere around here, yeah, and then leave it there. So Zdeněk, well done, great picture, definitely ready to be printed, put on the wall, and enjoying looking at it for months or years to come. So that brings us back to your images, and it's time for your landscape capture. Now, in your comments, you say that this was only one image, so one capture of the image. So well done there. Now, looking at the camera details, there is nothing there. How come? So no camera, no lens, and no camera settings, but that's fine. We're gonna quickly go through it. Looking at it, the sharpness is very decent. It looks like there is tiny bit of noise, specifically in these parts there, but nothing crazy. There's lovely texture in the sky. The light is what it is at this time and this part of the world. So good there. So in overall, technically, it looks decent to me. Yes, because of the light, some of the colors are a little bit all over the place. You see kind of different greens and browns and different brightness, but still, I think it looks quite cool. Now, to artistic part, to be honest, this bottom part, even though it's a lovely, lovely leading line and flow, I think it's a little bit too low. It kind of hides to the bottom. So the way around it would be maybe to move closer to the ground. So you would bring the camera lower, get a little bit more of the road, and then it would really help us to get that opening of the road in. So I just think the framing would need a little bit more of the road, a little bit higher. I think that would help a little bit more. Also, there is not necessarily like a clean foreground here. So I think that's maybe just one thing that is missing to help with the overall depth, but lots of good things as well. I mean, including the road really helps with the flow of the image. The 1/3 of a sky and 2/3 of the land really help as well. The texture in the sky is really helpful as well. So lots of good things. It's nicely balanced. It's not really over tipping to either side. So well done on lots of stuff here. I'm not really sure. I don't really have much I would add to it, Zdeněk. I think it looks great. It would look great in black and white too. And yeah, that's about what it is. I think it's a lovely image. Well done on capturing it. And thank you very much for sharing it with us. So, watering hole and landscape capture. So, finally, we're going to look at some more wildlife photos, and this time from Donna. So when I opened the images, I saw two eagles. I thought, what's the chance that we're going to be looking at two eagles today? And this one is also absolutely beautiful. I mean, this is a stunning picture from Donna. And we're going to jump straight to it and start by looking at the camera settings. So if you've seen the pictures from Donna, we look at them quite often here at the photography review show. Donna is shooting with Nikon Z6, I think Mark II, with the Nikon Z100 to 400 millimeters. Now on this image, the camera setting is ISO 100, f8, and 1/125th of a second, with the lens on 560 millimeters. Wow. So I assume that maybe she used like the extension tube or ring to extend the lens, but anyhow, this is beautiful capture. I mean, wow, it's just great. I really enjoyed it. I mean, camera setting wise, all spot on there, with lots of lovely stuff, great details, lovely sharpness, lovely light, great editing as well. I really enjoy this kind of very natural but deep colors from the trees and the forest at the background. Great depth. Yeah, just lots of great stuff. Let me just quickly zoom you in on the animal itself so you can see it. I mean, it could be cropped even like this. It could be cropped many different ways, and you would still get super powerful photo. Yes, just beautiful. Donna, thank you very much for sharing this one with you. Looking at it, yes, it's a JPEG, so it has a little bit of artifacts around, but I don't think that has anything to do with anything more than the transferring of the JPEG image. So that's about it. The depth is beautiful as well. Really enjoyed the tree as well as the animal and the background. So lots of good stuff here. I love the editing. I love the technique. I love the subject. So well done, Donna. Great image. Now, that brings us to the second image for this week. Let's have a look at it. Again, from Donna, what we're looking at is different birds kind of dancing or flying around the golden hour sunset time. So let's quickly go through the camera settings here. Nikon Z6 Mark II with the Nikon Z100 to 400 millimeters. And from the camera settings on this one, ISO 2000, 250 millimeters, f6.7 and 1/800th of a second. So on this one, of course, much higher ISO. And yes, you can definitely see it once you start to zoom in. You will see that with that higher ISO, you're starting to lose a little bit of the sharpness on some of these animals. And you also can see a lots of noise at the back. That's just how it is with the wildlife photography. And especially at this time of the day, you will have to push your ISO and you will get some artifacts from the lower light situation as well. F6.7, yeah, with that length of a lens will give you this nice softness anyway, which I think works very well. And 1/800th of a second in general gives you quite good sharpness. Now you have the foreground being a little bit more soft, not soft, a little soft, when then you have these animals which are all sharp. There's a movement which is captured well. There's also reflection. So yeah, it's a really difficult moment to capture the image, to be honest, with difficult light or complicated light. As a movement, low light situation, high ISO, there's just a lot happening there. But in overall, I admire you trying, and I think the result for what it is, I think end up pretty good. Now, when it comes to the storytelling, I like the framing. I think I would like to have a little bit more space on this side. I think that would be helpful. I think they are just cut off as they're looking out, and because they are in foreground and quite dominant, it's a little bit visible for me. So that would be one thing I would try. And other than that, nothing. I think it's great. I think it's very lovely. I love the colors and everything. My only thing is that kind of really strong blue fade or blue color on the animals, which I find it, yeah, a little bit strong and a little bit too strong to stand out of the image. So what I would do, I would just quickly jump into something like HSL panel maybe, and in saturation I would adjust the blue down a little bit. So maybe like -40. Now you always have to have a look at the before and after. Maybe -40 is too much, maybe a little bit up, like -25. And I think that really helps just to kind of remove that strong blue colors. Let me quickly show you before and after. And it's maybe quite subtle, but I think it just makes the image a little bit more natural. Other than that, it's great, as I told you, and I think it's well captured. Again, congratulations on trying to capture the animals in this environment. And one more time, congratulations and well done on this image here, because it's absolutely beautiful and epic. And there we have it, guys. We are finished for today. So thank you very much, Tony, Elizabeth, Zdeněk, Donna. Thank you for joining us this week. Don't forget that if you want to send your own images, head to our website, cleverphotographer.com/membership, and join us there. Join us with your images, get your monthly bundles, and have a lots of fun. Now, for the members, the Christmas or festive bundle will be coming out on Friday or Saturday at the same time with the dates for the photography review show for December. Now we will be up with Clever Photographer up till 20th of December, and after that we will take a little break until the new year. So I think we will manage 2 or 3 photography review shows between now and then. I hope you guys enjoyed today's show. Thank you for joining us, Zdeněk, Tony, Tom. Thank you, folks. Have a lovely evening, and I'm looking forward to see you all again next week on the next episode of the Photography Review Show. Have a good night.